mask that was requested of me is the Olson style mask. So I'm going to go through how to make the Olson mask. This pattern is available on the internet, and I'll take and put a link to it. Unity Point Health in Cedar Rapids had shared this a while back. I like the pattern. It's very simple. It is 6 pieces, but don't let that deter you. It's not a hard sew, and it doesn't really take any longer than the other masks. So what you want to have is whatever material for your face. It doesn't matter what color, whatever. Quilting cotton, whatever fabric you want for the cheek here, and this will be in contact with your cheek, so you can go with a softer like flannel, but just be wary. Some people don't like flannel because it's too warm, or the fuzzy will bother them or whatever. So I just chose cotton here. I got a microfiber fabric here that's nice and soft and breathable, just for some added filtration. This is ponytail holders. Elastics in short supply. It's about like trying to buy toilet paper these days. So ponytail holders, brand new ones. I bought a pack when I saw them to try out. This mask is long enough, it wraps around. This is a donation one. I won't try it on. I'll try on my little demo sample one to show you the coverage. So that's the coverage. It comes all up under here. This isn't cotton right here. It's just a sample. So, yeah, that one I didn't like the materials, so I just use it for a go by. One thing I add to the pattern, I've got a 1" by 4" strip, and I've turned the little edges under. I wind up sewing this into one of the seams that I'll show you a little bit later. I got a high contrast from the rest of the fabric, so that way it could be seen when someone looks inside. But what I put this little channel in for is to be able to slip like a pipe cleaner or wire in it, to be able to shape that nose guard a little closer. That's important for me, especially wearing glasses. I don't like that fog up my glasses. So, see, I've got that in there. So when I get ready to launder this mask, I can pull out that pipe cleaner, throw it in the washing machine, and then get it out and put a hot iron to it, and it's good to go. So the pattern comes with these templates. So it's real easy. You get a face 1 and 2. They look the same, but they're opposite. So if you're going to use one piece, you got to flip it over. Otherwise, if you don't want to get confused, if you're a new sewer, go ahead and just cut them both out. Just remember that 2 this way is not going to give you the desired result. Because you'll have by the time you put it like you need to, especially unless you're using batiks that don't have a definitive front and back. But in this case, my fabric looks different front and back. Okay, you have your cheek fabric, and you have your mouth fabric. I usually like a very light something. Keep in mind whatever you're going to have near the mouth. You want something. I'm going to move over to my sewing machine. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get my mouthpieces. So, you have mouth 1 and mouth 2. I'm going to take and I'm going to stitch the curved sides together. So I'm going to put them face to face, and I'm going to stitch those together. So you want them right sides together. And it is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay. So now, the next step is, I don't like raw edges, so we're going to take, with our seam allowance that we just cut upwards, kind of lay that standing up, and then on each one of these flat sides, we're going to turn that down, and we're going to stitch that down so we have a fold. So we're basically folding the wrong sides together of that fabric, just enough to give it a little bit of a folded edge, and to just wide enough to get a stitch down without raveling. And do the same thing on both sides. Okay, so now I've tacked the 4 sides. The right side, the pretty side of the cheek fabric and the pretty seam are on the same side, and then the sewn ridge seam allowance there, and that are on the same side. So right side, wrong side. All right, so now I'm going to lay that aside, put my right sides together of my face fabric. Kind of looks like a rhinoceros horn. The real sharp up angle is the top for the bridge of the nose. Okay, and again, I'm going to line this curved edge, and I must sew 1/4 inch along the edge. Not too much worried about back stitching because it's going to be caught in the seam allowance. Okay. So, that's my mask front. Pretty side, back side. So now, we're going to assemble the mask. This is where this little guy comes in. Again, that's a 1 inch by, I think I cut it like 4.5 inch long. I just barely turned the little edges under to give it a smooth so it don't fray. And I'm going to fold it in half, right side out, that raw edge up, okay? And I'm going to lay it aside, because first things first, I need to take the right sides of these pieces and align them together. Where I like to start on my pinning is at the bridge of the nose, so that real sharp up angle. And what I do is lay one seam allowance left, one right, and nest the seam. So if I lay this one over pointing that way, lay this one over pointing this way, when I put those two seams next to each other, I should be able to just kind of rub them till they butt perfectly up together. And then once I get that together, and I know it's where I want it, I'm going to grab a pin, and I'm going to pin right next to that seam allowance. Make sure it's nice and flat. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Lay in my seam allowance the same direction. Because if the center is aligned, everything else will be aligned. You don't want any weird puckers right on the center of your nose or your chin, because it would just be annoying. So I'm going to make my way. I'm just going to match up the edges and put a couple of pins. There went my seam ripper. Glad it didn't go through my foot. Never keep sharp objects on your workspace. Alright, let's try this again. Sorry, my phone kept dinging. Okay, so we are pinning around these sides so it matches up. The sharp curve is at the top of the nose. It is there where I'm going to add one thing that's different from the pattern. I mentioned the sleeve. So what I'll basically do, roll edges upward. I just kind of find the center roughly, and ain't got to be perfect. And I take that center and I align it with that top edge. I could have pinned it the first go round, but I just always kind of get my sandwich together and then I go back and pin it just in case I have to reposition something. So I pin the top middle and then I kind of make sure I work it around and I put at least a pin or two on either side, because it does just enough to make it curve with the seam, because it's going to curve, and that's fine. It's a slight enough curve that the wire will still go through. So that's kind of what it looks like. That's against the front. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on my sewing machine and I'm going to run a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, 360 degrees. I don't have to leave any gaps because this pocket here is where I'm going to turn it. So I just sew all the way around it. All right. And it's a 1/4 inch. And on this, I do make a quick back stitch to lock the stitches. As you reach the sleeve, if you see it's gonna, if the presser foot acts like it wants to move it, just be careful, make a little slight adjustment like I did there. And just keep it on the scant 1/4 inch seam. This is going to be big enough. Pipe cleaner isn't really that big. Now, if you're using a wider or bigger gauge wire, you may want to do like 1.5 inch sleeve and then fold it over if you need more fabric. I just didn't want to put any more bulk in there than I had to, and I wanted it to like stay in. So this works for the pipe cleaners I'm using. And those come out when you get ready to wash, because you don't want your pipe cleaners washed in the washing machine. Ask me how I know. Okay. When I was younger in home ec, I was told to, you just ignore the pins, you sew over the pins. I don't sew over pins anymore. I've broken too many needles that way. I just like my machine too much. Nothing ever seems right after you break a needle. On a project. Okay. So now I've sewn it all the way around. So now I'm gonna take and I'm gonna grab one side of this filter pocket. Well, before I turn it, to keep the bulk down here, and my scissors went down here. I just clipped the little corners off. Now you don't want to clip your thread where you stitch, so you want to be careful about that. But just kind of catty corner, snip those corners. That takes the bulk out. Okay. So now we're going to pull everything right side out through one of these pockets. Now, this is a chopstick. It works for a great turner. You can use a pen or a pencil or a ruler or anything you got, but that goes ahead and helps you poke out those corners nice and square. Okay. You could get on your ironing board about this time. Once you get on the ironing board, get a good hot iron, you could press that seam pretty flat and make that real nice. If you really wanted to go through, you could do an additional top stitch. If I was going to do that, you might want to do a wider seam because you'd be, a wider sleeve for that wire if you're including those. That's just an optional thing that I do. Okay, so the last step, ponytail holders. Okay, so all I'm going to do here, I literally just sit the ponytail holder there, turn the fabric down, I run a stitch along there, and sometimes I'll even turn it over and stitch it again. So stitch it down, and then I went on both sides just for good measure on this one. But that's all it is to it.